And welcome back to another edition of the Andrew Vanech Show, going Mikeless today. Today, forfeits in the NFL. Could it happen in this fourth quarter of the pandemic? Name changing and comparing and contrasting different names in professional sports. To help me out today, we have local Brooklyn comedian John Fox. John, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you, man?
And as I like to introduce him every time he comes on the show, straight from the corporate offices of SFC, Mike Phillips. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Andrew. Always a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to be on with a celebrity like John as our local comedian in Brooklyn. I love it.
Yes.
All right. That's the first time I've been called a celebrity, so I'll take it.
It won't be the last time, I promise.
What do you guys want to? I'm game. What do you want to start Where do you want to start this conversation off with?
I think you got to start with the forfeiting rule and how we're really kind of forcing a lot of these opinions on players stating, well, you don't want to do it, you don't play. Like recently, we saw Minnesota Vikings. They parted ways with one of their coaches because he had strong feelings against the vaccine. And because he had strong feelings against the vaccine, all of a sudden you turn around and he no longer has a job. I think I understand where we're going with this, where they're trying to have a season, but to turn around and have a forfeiting policy if you don't get vaccinated, and if there is COVID-related cases, we already know that even if you're vaccinated, you could still get COVID. We've seen it with this Delta variant. So what are we supposed to do? There's going to be 2 cases. Are we going to even have a season at that point if we're forfeiting?
Still, I think it should be like something like you still would have to get because like the symptoms, become just more mild at that point. And I just don't think like it's like an issue. It's weird to me though that like it's problematic for some people. Yet knowing what other professional athletes have put in their bodies over the years and we're worried about a vaccine.
Yeah, so what my issue is not necessarily with the vaccine. I do agree with some players how they're saying that they're being forced because we also don't know. Yes, we have milder symptoms if you're vaccinated. Listen, I'm vaccinated. If you're vaccinated, you get milder symptoms if you get COVID. But what happens if one of these players has these mild symptoms? Does they get put in quarantine, but does that jeopardize the entire team from playing that game? Or are they able to, similar to baseball, where they're able to pull that one player out and still play that game, aka Trey Turner the other night? We understand that they ended up turning around and the next game was postponed due to COVID restrictions, but do we turn around and say all of a sudden that it's going to be all these teams are going to forfeit if they have 1 or 2 cases? What is the threshold?
Okay, now I see your point because like there's a difference between 1 case and 1 or 2 cases and multiple outbreaks. Okay, now I see your point.
I just don't know the threshold.
If it's gonna be 1 or 2 cases, then yeah, that player's obviously gonna sit if he's not vaccinated. Where my concern is, this comes from me being a Bronco fan, and last year the whole fiasco with the 3 quarterbacks not wearing masks and having to play without a quarterback. Meanwhile, slightly similar situation in Baltimore and Pittsburgh, where those 2 teams are like playoff teams, and instead of having to force players to not play, they just kept rescheduling. So with forfeits and major breakouts, I'm looking at October 3rd, week 4 of the NFL. I was looking at games, comparing and contrasting. Patriots, Buccaneers, Tom Brady's return to New England. Tickets are going for $1,000, possibly more, probably $1,500 just to sit up top in Gillette Stadium.
Yeah.
If, hypothetically, and God forbid, there's a breakout, like a nasty COVID outbreak in that game, with NBC having it on prime time, does Roger Goodell, and I know this is usually a clean show, but I've made it a new rule, just no F-bombs. Does Roger Goodell have the balls to have a forfeit? Because what if a similar situation, earlier in that week, it's going to be Bengals, Jaguars. So if they're in that situation, I could see a forfeit happening. But you think if there was an outbreak like that with Patriots, Buccaneers, and the ratings that's going to bring in, and the money and the juggernaut that is the NFL, do you think Roger Goodell is going to pull the trigger and say, Bucks win by forfeit or Patriots win by forfeit, whatever it is?
No, absolutely not.
So who is he? So who are you playing? So who does he think he is?
Exactly. That's a good one because there's no if money gets involved like in big name matches, Goodell definitely doesn't have the balls for it. He really doesn't.
No, and I think you look at it the other way too. We're thinking about it as a forfeit could be amongst maybe MLB where we have 82, 116, whatever amount of games per season. For football, you have 18 games. 18 games. You forfeit 2 of those games, that could be your chance of even making the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's even more of a draw now. You're really going to turn around and you bring up a great point. You have Tom Brady and the Bucks, right, going to Gillette Stadium. What if you turned around and you had Aaron Rodgers, in a primetime game against Tom Brady, and similar things happen? The ratings are through the roofs on those, and you're going to turn around and say, sorry, game is forfeited. Let's put on figure skating. And I'm not knocking figure skating, but I'm just saying you have everybody wanting to watch a certain game on NBC primetime, and because of 1 or 2 cases or however many cases they're going by, you forfeit the game.
Well, they're not going to do it for one player, but you're gonna scrap the whole game of an outbreak. Again, if it's a marquee matchup and God forbid it happens, does he have the balls?
That's the question.
I don't think he does.
And I don't know. I have to tell you, Goodell over the years has had big cojones. He's made some bold moves.
Well, he pissed me off all last year.
Well, he's pissed me off many years, but he has some bold moves. So he could do it and just turn around to the rest of the league going, you get your crap together, or you're going to be next.
And I get that the NFL is a popularity contest. It's like, and the Sunday Night Football, the way they flex games is proof of that. But Roger Goodell proved it wasn't like him as commissioner. All that matters to him is ratings. So and I know my team was in a rebuild last year, so I know what it is. But as like a fan, you want to see somebody take snaps. And shout out to Hinton last year for going in last minute to go up against the Saints defense like that, and what do you call it? Getting your ass kicked. That's something, but to have another game with more talent involved, and you're pushing that game pretty much into the next week's slate of games. It was outraging to see.
Yeah, it's something else.
Yeah, it's just weird that because it's it's one thing to do it for ratings, but you're also putting a team in a bad position, and then you flip flop it if you do the forfeit, even though you're trying to keep the players safe, but at the same time, you lose a lot of money in the process. So it's definitely an interesting situation where you're going to have to take a step back and be like, okay, what do we got? What do we do now? Because I feel like no matter what Goodell does, a lot of players are going to get pissed off no matter what.
I think they already are pissed. And I'm wondering, I don't think anybody sits out, but I'm wondering what type of protest the players, if they go to the players union and they try to protest this and see what, forfeiting is a big bold move, right? Saying that a game could be postponed or saying this or that. Saying forfeiting, that is a different ball game. Forfeiting a game means you never replay that game. Forfeiting a game means that game is no longer on your schedule and you now have a loss because of what might have happened to a few of your teammates. Because again, I say a few because we don't know what the threshold is. Yes, we're saying outbreaks, but you don't know if all of a sudden, because of one case that's confirmed, if that player was on the entire offensive line, do you have to put the offensive line in quarantine? Because then that's half your team right there. You know what I mean? So it could be one case, but then the team has to quarantine because they were all practicing together. We don't know what Goodell might turn around and say in his rules, because there is no blatant rule right now of, all right, four more cases we're forfeiting. He has not stated a number.
Suppose this.
We don't know where it is.
How about vaccinations are optional for NFL players and coaching staffs and whatever. You want to get vaccinated, great. You're protected. For unvaccinated players, if you are responsible for bringing COVID into the locker room, knowing your choice was to be unvaccinated, you're still at risk, masks. If you don't follow protocols, you don't follow rules, and a breakout happens, should you get fined? Would that be more?
Fine $10,000
Yes.
and a
Would that be
suspension.
more apropos?
Yeah.
I mean, look, because like the way I looked at the whole, like even with the forfeit situation, like it's one thing to have a positive test because it just happened. You don't know how you got it, but it's another thing when you just blatantly just break the protocol like the Cardinals did last season when everyone went to a goddamn casino and then they had to play like 50 games in 45 days.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. I think there should be a fine. There should even be a suspension, just like what is being mandated right now in America with everybody trying to push the vaccine. And again, I will never have an issue with someone on their beliefs, whether they're for or against. I will never be someone to push something on someone because that is your belief system. But what it comes down to is this. If you're not willing to get the vaccine and it's your decision, then you need to either do weekly or daily COVID tests. But that comes out of your pocket. That is not even being paid by the facility. That is being paid by you as the player. So now that's your decision. You made the decision that you're not going to follow suit with the vaccine, but okay, you have to pay for the kits every day or every week, no matter how many days before a game, and you have to get tested. And it's on you. And if you get tested positive and it's found out it's because of negligence, then yes, the fine plus a possible suspension that could be deemed by the team, not by the league, but by the team, should be put in place.
Oh, that's a great way to put it, because I do believe, even though that negligence is basically could be one of the biggest things, but the hardest thing about negligence is that it's very difficult to prove.
Right.
Because there's like, unless you have like social media, unless like you have clear social media stuff, like what James Harden did with the strip club situation in Houston, then obviously that's something you can get him on. Like that's blatant proof right there, right then and there. But other than that, like no one's gonna like the number one thing to say, like when you've been in contact with someone who had COVID or if you got it, the number one thing that's gonna come to your head is, oh, I don't know how I got it, because like then like doctors, because like if you say like who was around you or like maybe how you got it, then like that's when like your information gets out there and like that's when everyone's gonna start calling you. Because a buddy of mine did that when he tested positive last time, the last time I saw him before that. And then he texted me saying, hey, I got tested positive. Be by your phone. You might get a call. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? So, like, it could affect literally, like, it's still like a thing where it happens to one person. It could affect other people.
I mean, look at this. I don't know if anybody was following with the Olympics, how there was a mini outbreak. These were people that were already vaccinated, sitting on a plane, going to Tokyo, and it just turned out that somebody in front of them had COVID. They had tested positive, and now all of a sudden they were in quarantine and then ended up having COVID, but they were vaccinated. And it affected half of a volleyball team. It affected half of a swim team. You know, so it's still going to happen. And right now, you know, I still call it the unknown, because we are in the unknown, because we thought we had a strategy as you know, America, with, you know, this vaccine, 3 different versions, whatever it might be, whatever you decide to go on, if you decide to get it. But people are still getting it, even with the vaccine. Now they're saying if you did Pfizer, you might need a 3rd dose, you might need a booster, this and that. So I think we're all learning together. So I think the word forfeit is very harsh right now because you're not seeing it in any other sport. Why does NFL feel to put a forfeit when their season is so much smaller than all of these other sports? It would make sense for hockey. It would make sense for basketball. It makes sense for baseball. But for a 17 to 18 game season with football, you're ruining your revenue. You're jeopardizing your revenue, I should say, not ruining it, but you're also jeopardizing, the likelihood of certain teams possibly making the playoffs, and it couldn't even be their fault. They could have just had someone that was a trainer have it, and it wouldn't have been their fault.
John, you got a closing statement before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, it's just I do agree though. Like that's the big thing. Like we are in the unknown, but if there's one thing I like is, and especially like if we need like another shot because of like the Pfizer or the Moderna, depending on what you got. From what I've been hearing, a lot of these cases have been coming from the Johnson & Johnson because like there's so many medical problems with that. And I will say this about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine: that is the most New York Jets thing to happen during the pandemic, and I will leave it on that.
Mike's a Jets fan too, John.
I'm a Jets fan myself, man, so I know how it feels.
All right, I appreciate it, especially when baby powder gives you cancer, apparently.
All right, so moving on. In recent news, the Cleveland Indians are going to have a radical change in their name in the Cleveland Guardians, which, unless you're from Cleveland, I guess makes zero sense.
It does make sense in a little bit of a way because
they're named after a bridge.
It's the bridge where you come into Cleveland and you first see Progressive Field.
What? That? Okay, that. But nobody's gonna get that. Like, I don't know, Minnesota Twins, the Twin Cities, New York Mets, the Metropolitan. Seattle Mariners, because of like all the maritime stuff going on in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, the Padres are named after priests.
I think there's a tie to that. I forgot exactly what it is with San Diego. Los Angeles Angels. Los Angeles is literally the Angels. City of Angels. Texas Rangers. Houston Astros because of the space program. But Guardians doesn't fit a baseball team look for some reason, and the G is a ripoff of the old Anaheim Angel logo with the wing.
Well, the wings also look like the guy from The Sopranos.
Paulie Walnuts.
Paulie Walnuts, yeah. It looks like his hair streak. It's just the best. When I saw that meme, I said, "Oh, this sums it up." I don't understand it only because we got the description that it's because of the name of the bridge. Okay. Nobody told us why the bridge was named the Guardians. What is the background on that? On top of that, I think Cleveland Guardians, I think of a XFL team, or I think of like an AHL team, or even a minor league baseball team. I don't think of the Guardians being a major league baseball sounding team. I don't know. To me, it just sounds amateur.
That reminded me of something because I forgot what city it was, but there was a minor league team called the Sock Puppets that said that's a silly name.
There you go. Right. There you go. I mean, come on.
The Binghamton Rumble Ponies. Staten Island Pizza Rats would have worked if Robert Manfred didn't cut them from existence.
Yeah, that's true.
Every time I hear the name, though, I think of Guardians of the Galaxy, though.
Yeah, same.
That was my first thought, too.
Yeah.
For football, that works. You're guarding the end zone. Yeah. Basketball, you're guarding the net. Hockey, you're guarding the net. Baseball,
you're guarding a 3-1 lead, which you can't protect.
Oh.
You're guarding the wall as they're hitting home runs off. Yeah, I mean, come on.
It came off too cliche. Like what's wrong with it? Like they should have went Cleveland Spiders, but a lot of people.
That would have been good. A good throwback.
That's a throwback to like old school Cleveland baseball history. And Nick Tricombe from our last episode covering the Kraken, he mentioned that arachnophobia is very out there, So it's like maybe that's like a thing. But then again, you're not going to draw a spider in detail and freak everybody out. You're not going to play vignettes of spiders building webs. But
That scene from Harry Potter.
Oh, we don't. I skipped that scene. I saw that in theaters. I was like, oh my god. What about the spider? But like the Spider-Man like insignia on his chest, you can easily like do something with that. Other
I think it was
the Cleveland Rock, the Cleveland Rocker.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah,
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is there. They couldn't have had any fun with that. I mean, come on. There was so many avenues to go down.
Within the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, any of the musicians that came from Cleveland, like any type of other landmark. I'm not very familiar with Cleveland. Any other landmark that you could have found. The Guardians, I felt like it was a cop-out. And they were like, we have to change our name now because Washington is going to decide on their name soon. And we got to get out of here and take care of this. And they pulled.
We're talking, but that's another situation to look at. Is that
I do think Cleveland handled it better.
What Cleveland did was smart. They didn't jump to change the name. They said, let's rock with it another year. That's fair to like the old school fans. It's they call themselves the Tribe. Out of the Native American names, I thought this one was one that could have easily been tweaked, or they could have done things to make it better, as far as like logo goes. And Chief Wahoo out the window.
But I want to see Guardian Wahoo now.
Guardian Wahoo. Yeah.
Just keep the same face with like a white guy.
With the
put him in the Knight's outfit. Exactly.
With the wing helmet. Yeah. Yes. That'll be great. That'll be like what? Like, no, it was like you're missing the point still. Like, what are you talking about? He's just a red dude that's guarding the city now.
There you go.
Yeah. I do think though they also wanted to save money on a logo and uniforms. Because like the literal thing, you're not changing the C on your hat. You're definitely not changing that. You only really just photoshopped out half of the logo, and because you wanted to keep like the Deans or something like that, and like you literally only changed like a couple of letters, and like the only thing you really would have to change on the uniforms is just take the Indians thing off and put Guardians. That's it. That saves them a lot of money. And
it should only take the first half.
It's not like owners of professional baseball teams, well, they're like
their payroll's not that great though. The Indians have never they're a very, very small market. Like I was looking at this after the Mets decided Lindor's contract, like what he's making per year, the Indians are paying that amount in payroll for the players. Like it was probably around 35 to 40 mil. Like they're not a rich team. They're not a big market team. They're very small. They have to like a team that kind of has to like rebuild and rebrand itself.
It's you mentioned the Washington football team, or how I like to call them, the artists formerly known as Redskins, about how, like we said, the Indians, like as we just said, was they took the time to like say, all right, this is the direction we're going in, even though it's a corny one. The Washington football team is now going into their second year without an identity, and Dan Snyder is not the best owner, is not one of the best owners of professional sports. In fact, all the good ideas that they had have been trademarked by a lawyer in Alexandria, Virginia, and I don't think he's willing to pay the money. I think one of my favorite names, like out of that group, was the Washington Red Wolves. You keep the red aspect, and Wolves pack, they attack just like a defender attacks a quarterback. It would work. I'm afraid they're going to come up.
I don't.
I hope it's not like an alliteration. I know people from Washington who are like still eye rolling at the Wizards just because of the alliteration involved. So I think you're going to see the Washington Walrus soon.
That would be great. They have a walrus as a mascot. That'd be awesome.
They eye rolled at the Wizards the same way a lot of people did about the Bullets.
Oh yeah.
Well, Bullets like the speed of the game. He drives down the court. But they changed it because like the crime rate in DC was atrocious.
Oh yeah, that makes
our nation's capital was like leading like the country in murder rate, And
That makes so much sense.
and Bullets reflects that, and it's like, yeah, we got to change that.
Yeah, you can't really you can't put a name of a team related to all of the deaths that are happening in the vicinity.
Yeah, it's just funny that like Magic has its and Wizardry has a place in the NBA. Washington Wizards, Orlando Magic.
Just with the Washington football team, they handled it terribly. It was like the PC era, as I like to call it, came in, swarming. They even swarmed around the Cleveland Indians, and the Cleveland Indians kind of, put their shield on and ran away. Washington football team was like, oh my God, everybody's making fun of our name. We got to remove it, without having a backup, without having anything.
You go on NFLshop.com and you can buy Washington football team gear. What is it like to be in Washington or be a fan and go, oh, I'm a football team fan?
Right.
Yeah.
I've always said that, like, that team name right now, it kind of sounds like what your girlfriend would cheer at a game when she doesn't watch sports.
Yay, football team! Yeah,
exactly. Like, yay, go sports, yay.
You're right. Yeah, it's true.
It's a weird situation.
Yeah, like the thing is there's like a real huge difference between Washington and Cleveland, because Washington, that situation, that was a literal racial slur in the dictionary. Like, it's spelled out for you right then and there. Like, okay, that's kind of Washington I didn't see as a PC issue. Indians maybe slightly, because that was like really only a thing because of literally everything that has to do with Columbus Day.
Well, what I liked, what the Redskins name, I can see the logo itself though. I always thought was like, it was like a profile head of like a Native American warrior, and I thought that was cool. Versus
like
Chief
the Blackhawks.
Exactly. Versus the Indians with Chief Wahoo, which is literally a cartoon character of a cheeky, smiling, like something you would see on a cigar box in the 1930s. Like,
yeah.
Well, I got news for you. I just saw this as we were talking.
Is this breaking news?
Breaking news. Speaking of the Cleveland Guardians, Terry Francona has decided to step down for the rest of
Wow.
the health issues. And they're stating that DeMarlo Hale will take his place. So I don't know if he was making himself sick over the new name as the Guardians, or if it's something serious. I hope, I wish him the best, but he has stepped away as the manager of the Cleveland Guardians.
This show needs to start going live. I'm going to talk to Mr. McMahon, a.k.a. Carl Coulange.
Should.
Get this live, because this is 2 recordings in a row.
With breaking news?
With breaking news, and I'm coming off looking like Internet Explorer.
I will say this, though, about the whole Guardians thing. Like, if you want to change your name to get with the times, do you? I'm not going to knock you for it. I just don't want the movie Major League changed at all.
Oh, never touch that. Never touch that movie.
Like, never touch that. It's still a fantastic movie. Yes. I feel like changing the name and, like, altering it a little bit, that's going to ruin it.
Serrano running down with, bouncing his big cojones as he's running down first. That movie will always be truly priceless.
Never.
Exactly.
Touch Nobu's rum.
Yeah.
There was, like, that movie, like, they weren't, like, sure, they were the Cleveland Indians, but, like, they weren't making fun of Native Americans.
They just happened to be about the Cleveland Indians.
Well,
you could put any other baseball team in that situation.
In a movie. That's what they were. The 86 Mets in a movie.
Yes, I will tell you,
interesting take.
They did have a couple of scenes where they had the Indian garb on their head as they were pounding. The fans were pounding on drums in the outfield. So
that was towards the end against the Yankees, right?
Yes, and that was with I can't think of his name. Why can't I think of his name?
Charlie Sheen?
No. It was with the actor was in. The actor was also in National Lampoon. He was the one that was in the stands always making fun of Charlie Sheen.
Oh, that was the second one. The second one wasn't that great.
No, but what was his name? There was somebody that was. I can't think of his name right now. It'll come to me later. But yeah, there was the way they were chanting and then also making fun at the same time. It was that movie's priceless. I could watch. I'm actually could probably watch it tonight.
You make my heart sing. I hate this fucking song.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. I kind of picture the owners I hate when my teams are doing well. When I hear that.
That's pretty good.
You know what? I think we're gonna have a discussion about baseball movies before summer's out.
We should.
Yeah.
Some good ones. I mean, my all-time favorite. I'm going on record is The Sandlot.
Yeah, save it for the next episode, man. I gotta get a library out.
All right, I hear you.
That's it for today's edition. I would like to thank Mike and John for coming on and talking about two hot button issues in sports right now. Follow me on Twitter. Check us out on Instagram where you can catch all the episodes. Follow us on YouTube. Check out the Sports Hit List, and we will see you next time. I'm Andrew Vanech. Take care.